vitally important that you need to know about. And
since we're running late, that's just the way. I ain't gonna introduce you. That's just the way it started.
yeah,
Yeah,
okay. Let me know when you're ready to.
I'm ready.
And you can, put the subject matter and the date, time in.
Right. All that's in.
All right. You just sit.
So what this class is going to be on is the March American government activates gold-backed treasury with $666 trillion in dollar. That's what we're talking about. And when the two sisters was in the back, she asked what was the class about. You heard it right. So I told her it's on money. So she said, that's a good class. So I said, have you ever seen money? So she gave me a funny look, right? And she said, yeah, I've seen money. I said, when? She said, today. She just pulled it up. I said, that ain't money. It's the Federal Reserve note. Kind of, and so I asked her, yeah, she did. She thought I was being funny. But basically, a lot of people think that Federal Reserve notes is money. It's not money. So that's what he's going to talk about. And anybody got any questions, man, just ask questions. All right?
Oh, as an interim, just to share information with you, because I talk to people from around the world. And once in a while I'll get calls, and they usually don't talk long because it'll be cut off or interrupted because it's me, so because they try to block outside information, but every once in a while it gets through. Hong Kong, they're running the banks right now as we're speaking, so understand it's on its way here. So like I've been telling y'all for years, if you got any fiat in the bank, take it out. And if you got large amounts, if you try to take it out one time, they're gonna call the cops on you, or they're gonna do something to you. So, because it's not yours. And I'll tell you why if you ask me, though that's not the subject matter. But because they plan to confiscate it anyway. So it's better that it's in your hands and in your safe. Trust yourself instead of trusting them. So that's just a one-ups, because you already know I've been telling people for years, take their fiat out of the banks, and if you're going to use them, only leave enough to transact what you do on a weekly basis, so that when they steal from you, they ain't got much to steal. Meaning that no more than it takes to keep that account operative, if you're wise. So you've been told. So I won't go into that subject matter, but you've been told. Now, like when I used that as a scenario earlier, and I said, if you're a made man, or if you're a constitutionalist, Mason, Shriner, Illuminati, Ghoul Society, Bishopric, whether it's on the light side or the dark side, which means the truth is one. Just like when you see in the Septuaginta or the Bible, when you hear it say the sun shines on the good as well as the evil, means that truth is truth and the sun is the sun. It's not partial. The laws of nature are not partial. Where are you in relationship to divine law, and how do you guide your life? How do you navigate? But there is no special God looking at you to take your peanut butter sandwiches because you didn't pray them yesterday. So get that out of your head. Now, the people that promote those kind of thoughts themselves know what I just said because they're trained with that. However, they don't teach that to the masses. They want the masses to be docile and subordinate. Do you understand? But they themselves do not believe anything. They seek knowledge. Are we clear? And they operate from knowledge, sometimes referred to as degrees. In a private conversation, say if I had a grand sheep sitting here, a grand dragon sitting there, an imam sitting here, a rabbi sitting there, a bishop, P2, sitting there, Shriner sitting here. In a private conversation, none of them would dispute with anything that I'm saying. In public, a couple of them start saying I got a devil. The other one saying that's shirk, and he's a sinner, and to keep the masses asleep. Are we clear? In secret, they're partners. Even though for the public they argue with each other, and you're going to hell in the handbasket because you didn't give Reverend Bigfoot $5 for Jesus' half type stuff. You didn't make charity, you didn't make salat and stuff like that. And also in secret, most of them kissing the ring of the Pope. Do you understand? Pope of Rome. For your information, and write this down, some of you who are not already aware of it, Article 3 of the Secret Treaty of Verona in the congressional records, and you'll find the oath of the clergy. And this is for people who's hard for them to accept what we just put on the board. You know what I mean? Or they think that you're attacking their religions and their beliefs, or whatever. You know, well, it's true. You throw them on a life raft and they think you're anti-God, anti-Allah. And they don't know, most of them really, what any of it is. Although it relates to them, you know, I'm just saying their concepts of it is corrupted. And the only ones that usually get wealthy is the guy with the $3,000 suit who's pumping it to the believers. While secretly, he got other degrees. And it doesn't mean they're bad people. Don't misunderstand where I'm coming from. They don't mean they're bad people. It's just for the most part, they're liars, that's all. That are opportunistic with a dumbed down humanity who's actually been abused by the priesthood, and the devil has been a tool for the priesthood to hide their corruption. You know, the devil took the sandwiches. Getting the peanut butter from over here. You know, why you looking at the devil? You want to kick the devil's butt. You don't see him, but you give him, and you raising money too. You know, come out the jacket type thing. You know, where's he at? Where's he at? And they've been getting away with it. Because really what it is, for those who really know, dogmata is what's given to the masses as religion. Please understand where I'm coming from. It's not condemning people for having belief systems. It's only exposing that they're under training, animal training. Do you understand? And it doesn't mean that they're bad people for doing this. It just means they're being abused, misused, misled, not accidentally. And usually they will fight you for trying to rescue them, as if you're against their gods type thing. But that's part of the training too. If you were a made man, say Masonic order, you'd have a coin. Mafia, you'd have a coin. Kite Lewis, Ku Klux Klan, Union Guard, Thule Society, you carry a coin. If you're a constitutionalist, same way. If you're one who there, because the word we were talking earlier is often used improperly, conscious community, that kind of statement. If you're conscious, you'll carry one. Because you have it would indicate that you have a kind of a reasonable degree of understanding of how things work, how human society is structured, how it operates. So I'm clear. Not necessary, because it's all you learn from cradle to grave. Are we clear? However, there are degrees. And so in any science that you learn on the planet concerning human endeavors, human life, human structures, the disciplines, is fundamentally doctorates in philosophy, no matter what it is. Are we clear? If you're dealing with ecclesiastics and you go into degrees, you would be a PhD. Engineering, same thing. Are we clear? And so loosely they just say doctor. But what it means, doctor of philosophy. All right? And what it is, whatever discipline that you're into, you would study the primal sources of information that are at the foundation of that particular discipline. Are we clear? And test it on it, and meet certain criteria, accepted criteria. And it doesn't mean necessarily that all the criteria that is presented to you is absolutely correct. It is usually what is accepted as correct. Right? Are we clear? However, in the real world of operations, the secret societies exist for a lot of the truths and facts or established rules of life, some of which have been kept from even those with PhDs. Are we clear? Are we clear?
Yeah.
So there's a layer of hierarchy in the hierarchy, but usually not admitted to the public. Are we clear? Also not spoken of publicly. Are we clear?
Yeah.
So I'm being honest with you. So some of the things that I say to you are actually in those upper degrees. But most of you who know me know that I've never hidden anything anyway. But in the real world, so if I'm dealing with, say, like a administrative clerk of the commercial realm for the Circle Church, who's foreclosing on my home, and you're at a so-called share sale, and they're bidding, going through their things, and you're already knocked out the picture. You go up there, you do your coin. You say, stop the proceedings. Got one lawful silver dollar, and it trumps all of them stacks of private commercial paper of the Jesuit order that you, in breach of your oath, are honoring to interrupt the deed of trust and dragging that house that I'm steward of in it as trustee of me as ward. I'm not ward, I'm there. And I'm not standing as surety. Here's my claim. They'll close it down. Close the court. Even if they carry it through, they ain't gonna do it in front of these people. You understand? That's also used in other situations. Whereas, like, say, for instance, you might be in Alabama somewhere, and they assume that you're what they call a black man and start doing the Christian black code things and want to give you a necktie to match your shirt type thing. And you pull out a coin, or you say, I'm not black, I'm more. And anything like that, then the whole atmosphere changes. You know what I mean? Because all of them are Masons, right? And so they give you a pass. They say, hang that one, take this, take him by the room and send him out. Make sure he got passage. That's why made men carry coins in points of emergency, because that's the real world. Because the masses are in a false matrix. They know it, but most of them are in denial. In their hearts, they know it, but most of them are in denial. Do you understand?
Yes.
Now I'm gonna get to subject matter, and I want you to ask some questions, because if any of you have seen recent videos that have taken place, and you've seen a video with Judge Light, Taj Tarik Bey, and them issuing 666 trillion delirium. How many are familiar with it? And logically, questions will come up. So I'm going to tell you this much so that you can have a background to comprehend what you're looking at. You must know trust law to understand what's taking place. If you don't know trust law, it'd be difficult for you to look at it because you're looking for physicality. For starters. And you're probably measuring at first in your mind your concept of what you think a dollar is and what a dollar is not. Most not what a dollar is not, but most thinking what they think a dollar is, and they're measuring from that point. Let me inform you from the surface. The dollar is a short for Yakum dollar, which means gold coin. Are we clear? Yeah. And it deals with the principles of cosmology of the character of the nature of culture on the planet Earth. Are we clear? Some would call it true religion. Are we clear? Yes. Not what the masses get or what they think it is. That's not rejecting what they get. It's just explaining to you what is behind the veil, distinguish what is given to the masses, what they assume that they're getting, right? So I'm gonna make these points to you. All right. As an example, I'm Muslim. Now there's multiple comprehensions of what that is. To some or to most, Muslim is one who submits to the will of Allah, right? The images that people take in their mind is an image of the way they've been trained. They'll say abstract. They'll say the great spirit, the unseen, creative force. But in their mind, from an anthropomorphic view, because humans on this planet pretty much have been trained in an anthropomorphic venue. So therefore, their mind is a man sitting on a golden throne with a turban on, in their mind. That's to give them some kind of a value. And then before him, say Prophet Muhammad, messenger, etc. type thing. You know, not good or bad or wrong, but you know, from a child's point of view, that would be called anthropomorphic. Are we clear? If they're dealing with Yahshua ben Yosef, Isa, or who they call Jesus, they would just change the imageries and the names, and you got the same thing. Do you understand? If you deal with Elohim, or what you call Yahweh, etc., same game. From an anthropomorphic perspective. All right? Now, as we were talking earlier, and as we were introducing into the subject matter, if you get these same people that claim to be Christian, right? And you give them that, right? They would say, "Oh, that's not my symbol. That's not my game." I'm not knocking it, but you know, I ain't into that type thing, right? Right? And same thing if you deal with Muslims, people, Muslim, Buddhists, etc. You give them that symbol. Excuse my semi-drawing. And they don't necessarily relate to it, don't reject it. Now, the interesting thing when you study what you call human sociology, and what the masses are called told religion is, the most tolerant generally is Islam, which is tolerant of all the religions because all of them are part of Islam in a sense, if you get the point. Even though when you deal with a lot of people who claim Islam, you'll see the biases that they have among each other, just like they have in Christianity and other things, meaning that most of the things that people claim they don't really practice. They do more of an imagery, a look. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? Then real practice is not really in their life other than how they try to project to other people. Outside of that, everybody partying, whatever, they're just people. They do the same thing. They really, you know what I mean? Some hide it, some veil it, they just people. So don't be impressed. But point that I'm making is, back to cosmology. What these mean, in fact, is not usually what's told to the believers. Are we clear? All right? Same thing with Hex Alpha. All right? Now these are common, right? Now, with Muslims, all of these belong to Muslims, but some Muslims don't accept all of these. Now, to the average person who don't know Islam, science, would wonder where I'm coming from with that. Because to them, the way they've been trained, it doesn't make sense. Because all the people are locked into one of these, in their mind, fences, abstract fences of what they are perceiving what religion is based on what some group of men told them. But I'm telling you that the group of men that told them that in secret don't buy what they're telling the masses. Are we clear? Because they got all the books. They just don't display them to the believers. Are we clear? And like I said to you before, because we're going to get into the Delarian thing, but I'm building around it because it's all involved. It's all connected. All right? Pardon me. All of them. So if you take a Mason, a Master Mason, going past Master Mason, Shriners, Kairos, Ku Klux Klan, Illuminati, Knights Templar, Knights of Columbus, Daughters of Isis, Eastern Stars, Kairos, Ku Klux Klan, Union Guard, Thule Society, on and on, Knights of Malta, Knights of Columbus, on and on and on, right? All of them got Korans, so get that out. So get that mystery out your face already. Are we clear? Yeah. However, their training with it is not what the masses get. The same way. Do you understand? Even though they have degrees and they're giving the information mostly in signs, symbols, and allegorical stories, they're given certain keys that demystifies the mystery type thing. Are we clear? Clear. But they're also bound to oaths not to share that comprehension and understanding with the masses, even with the one they're sleeping next to in the bed. Are we clear? Clear. And that's how the world has pretty much run. The difficulty for some of them today, in these days, is that there's been a few men born of women whose missionary work is to unravel that or pull the wool off those wolves. And so you have a clash, you have a cultural clash going on the planet right now. Are we clear? Are we clear? Their network of keeping humanity in the dark is so strong, and it has mostly to do with the fact that they're not only thieves, they're murderers. Do you understand? If someone comes to rescue, they already have systems where that person is what they refer to as neutralized. Are we clear?
Very well.
Common man to kill you. Or just to keep the masses in the dark. Because they're really parasites. All right? You know, you think because they have these holy garbs on, beautifully dressed, and they got holy books in their hands, that they're salami, baloney, and divinity of Allah in heavens and stuff, type stuff, you know. Fact, most of the bloodshed on the planet comes from them people. That's saying Jesus, God, Allah, and Moses, and love you and salvation. And they're the biggest stockholders in the arsenals of war on the planet. The largest stockholder of the arsenals, the stock in the arsenals is the church. They're the largest stockholder. Why? Because they're the source of the wars. Researchable, or look it up for yourself. Now, getting back to some fundamentals so we can talk about the Delirium. We've been over this with you many times, but we want to give you some history so you can understand the politics, so you can understand the Delirium, so you can understand also the 666 trillion and why 666. It's a counter move. It's called chess. That's for one. How many of you know basic rule, law on the planet of heritability, i.e. rules of inheritance? Raise your hand. Look around the room. Look around the room. All right, rules of inheritance. Get that brother the mic for a minute. Yeah.
Rules of inheritance.
Yeah, the fundamental rules of inheritance. Inheritance itself, what does it mean?
Her. You come from a mother.
Well, yes, that's what it relates to, yes. Now, in relationship to hereditament, corporal and incorporeal, what does it mean in society? Anywhere on the planet, in general?
National.
Not a question. Do you want to answer a question? I'm a student too.
Four.
Oh, all right.
That you're a national. You have a national name.
Well, that's true. That's not subject. Subject is heritability. Inheritance, corporal and incorporeal.
Mm-hmm.
How does that relate to humans as far as descendability?
You have to prove your lineage.
Well, that's true too. Yeah.
What you ask me, bro?
Well, it's not loaded, but it is good for us to look at this. See, because how much is 2 and 2? You answer.
Mm-hmm.
How much is 4 and 4? You answer. What is your attribute? Or what some people may say your name. You answer, and you don't look over in the corner, you don't start pulling straws. So that means we need to get grounded in these things because that's what's going on this planet. Are we clear?
Yeah.
Yes.
Very clear.
Because we have been a particular target of the Spanish Inquisition for quite a few hundred years, and that is what's operating on this planet. Even what's behind all of the wars around this planet. Most of our people don't know that they're at the center of it. They just think they have a skin complexion problem because somebody told them that. So that's the general concept. Then others think, though it is a tool that's used, well, you just have the Christians warring against the Moors or Muslims, and this is what all the wars are around the world. They'll say Christianity versus Islam, which is a loose term that they use. which is simply means the Occidental Germanic tribes' wars against the Asiatic Africans. That's all that means. It doesn't mean prayer, and it doesn't mean spirituality. It's a political term. Are we clear?
Clear.
And so the subject matter that we're into is actually that, without the confusion or the biases, so that the people can be better prepared to try to stabilize themselves and their families intelligently, without hatred, without anger, but with intelligence and strategies. Are we clear?
Yeah.
But it can't be done if you're introducing within it biases by adopting controlled narratives that you see in the mainstream news, anger, slander, evil type thinking. You just simply gotta understand that they're waging war on you. You're not at war like some people say. No, they're at war against you, and you collectively are just beginning to wake up to it. War didn't begin. They've been waging war on you for centuries. We've been asleep and in denial. However, we're at a point that denial is dangerous because they're culminating certain things on this planet with the intention of eliminating 2/3 of the population, with you at the forefront of that population elimination. Are we clear?
Clear.
And part of the war strategy is to break you economically, then remove the body. Are we clear? It's not opinion, it's fact. Are we clear? And so we're not talking about the subcategories, which is absolutely true. Like many people are eating here, like you're eating here, right? And he's eating here. It's with a psychology and an understanding that the food has been poisoned. And so you're conscious of what you're putting in your body, knowing that it's been weaponized, right? So a lot of people that come to a venue like this come with that knowledge in their head, right? But that permeates the entire society. That's just a subcategory of the biological warfare with the genetic mutations of the genetic code of the plant life and the animal life for reducing human population as a war tool. Like cancer, as an example, the Cretans, well, the people call them Christians, but don't think spirituality, all right? That's Europeans that you call it, that our people ignorantly call white man, which by the way, means sovereign, doesn't mean complexion. So when our people call the European white man, they say sovereign or God. It's another reason, like as we were talking earlier, it's dangerous for our people not to know language because they actually cast spells on themselves and then get frustrated with the spells that they cast on themselves because they can't read. And then because they're usually arrogant and self-righteous and think that their education is for humans. Education is for animal training. Erudition is for humans. So they think they know stuff, and then they think they got a special relationship with God type thing. They don't even know what God means. But the ones who gave it to them know what it means. It's not a negative at all, so that don't misunderstand where I'm coming from. It's just that they don't know what they're talking about. And so they're under control and don't know they're under control. So what we're trying to do is share with you certain information, give you reference points for research for your own, and then show you some things that are taking place right now on the planet, and some things that you're seeing and how it relates to you, even if you thought it didn't. But it's in your interest to be aware of it. Are we clear? Because it's still your estate, even if you're not aware of it. It's still your estate, even if you're not interested. Are we clear?
Clear.
So as an example, within our families, as an example, in our families, we have Muslims, Christians, Buddhists, Hebrew, Israelites. They take on different anthropomorphic versions of what religion is to them. And other than acknowledging that they're family and blood, most of the rest of the stuff they ain't got nothing to talk about because they're mad at each other because they got different gods while saying that they got the same God. That God is one, but they all got different versions. And even some of them in the same so-called religious order got different versions of the version of that version of the God of the version of the sect. And then some of them just found a new one last week and converted to another one. I really found the Lord this week and they go to another club. So you already know those dynamics are normal in our communities, although people, for the sake of sensitivity, aren't as honest as I just stated that fact to be. That is the fact. And when it comes to really solving problems, they end up arguing with each other in the name of this God love that they all claim to have. And the best way to keep some kind of civility going on so they don't hurt each other is to stop the conversation with all this God love they got, you know, that they got from Reverend Bigfoot, you know, type stuff. Who secretly didn't believe none of this stuff himself. It's a tool. He knows it's a tool. They don't know it's a tool. All right? Now, synopsis in history. We need not go back so many hundreds of years. Let's go back to what you can relate to. Many of you familiar with what's going to take place in a couple of months in Philadelphia, known as the Mummers Parade. Most of you who are young are not aware, but some of you who are not as young, like myself, what they call old heads or G's or whatever, you know, LG type thing, are aware that the Mummers Parade, they stopped doing it in what they call blackface in around 1985 during the Good administration. Wilson Good in Philadelphia. Now, as an interim of information, Wilson Good, for the sake of those who know, was conscious of his Moorish heritage, even though it was Wilson Good. Are we clear?
Yes.
And like most of them are also, most of all those politicians are Masons too. Are we clear?
Yeah.
And in secret got a Moorish fez and go to a lodge with a Moorish name and they dress their fezzes up with Allah and Moorish names. And then come back out and claim to be Christians and Jews and a whole bunch of other stuff, all of which they kind of are and are not type thing. It's for the stock market. The believers are the stock market. They're not to know that. One of the other things that of interest that you need to know, and you can write this down, and like I said, these are snippets. So if they don't appear to be connected to you, know that they are. Although I'm not dealing linear with you. All right? One of the things that the priesthood boast about among themselves, led by the Circle Church and the Chancery, and the popes of Rome, and the members of the Roman Curia that run the United States Corporation Company that has been presented to the masses as a country, which it is not. It's really a private country, a private corporation of the Jesuit order registered in Austria. The masses must never come to know that capital does not create labor. Labor creates capital. The masses are never to know that. But all people, members of the Roman Curia, and heads of all corporations are trained and know that as a rule. Are we clear?
Yeah.
For if the masses ever find that out, they will rebel and they will no longer be in rulership. Are we clear?
Yeah.
Also, that their concept of fiat must be limited on a plateau of instrumentality referred to as the dollar bill. Right? Now, point. This is back to the point. What they're calling the dollar bill is really a debt note. knowing that the masses cannot read because they've been trained, they don't know that dollar bill is an oxymoron. And the reason they call it a dollar bill is to reduce the karmic debt on themselves for having produced it, because it's a violation of nature. So remember this: persons in positions of power know the true rules of religion while they don't teach it to the masses. See, because divine law does not recognize personal station. Are we clear? So when you hear the term Allah is just, that's what that means. Are we clear? So what you do or do not do are both doings in nature and have a consequence in what is known as the Hermetic law of cause and effect, which is also referred to as karma. Karma is not a response to what you do based on what you do. Karma is just simply cause and effect rule operation in nature. It has no eyes. It's just a rule of life that operates in the phenomena of the universe. And this is why when, like say if say you're an adept and you're a shriner, you become a shriner, you're an adept, the same Hermetic rule you would get, the same Hermetic rule that someone gets who's a rabbi, or an imam, or a master mason, or a Kaikos of the Ku Klux Klan, although you wouldn't necessarily teach it openly, blunt like we're talking right now. You would say it in some kind of allegorical form. You know, it sounds beautifully flowered, and you need 5 drinks of Kool-Aid before you contemplate on what it really means type thing, and they give you a badge to wear over here to make you feel important type stuff, you know, to represent your degrees and stuff like that. But most men spend their lives dancing around these things, and then the rulers know square out what they mean. And they're very simple even for a child to understand. And most of the time it's not complex at all. And you'd be surprised, a lot of times some of the allegorical stories that are told in the higher degrees of the secret societies, if you give it to a child, because the child doesn't have an agenda, child will answer it most of the time because divine law is very simple and straightforward, because it's not loaded. But the way we've been trained, we keep looking for the metaphysical complexity of the loaded question of the spirituality of, you got really type stuff, you know. Yeah. And then most of our answers are wrong because we're reaching for straws instead of just simply looking at life. We've been trained we've been pulled so far away from the nature of ourselves that we're not thinking. And so a lot of these things that we're saying is to get you thinking again, all right? Now I'll give you a point. Now this crescent is the crescent symbol for the moon, right? Now this has another metaphysical meaning, but that's the moon. And this, Venus. On another level, because this and this has relationship to the physical life on the earth, this governs the womb of woman. Are we clear? On a cycle of 13. It also governs the flow of the waters on the earth, the tides. Are we clear? With a secondary effect of fertility and fecundity from Venus. Are we clear? And then we have the sun, right? That's also represented in philosophy, right, with a dot in the middle of it. Some call it the black dot theory type stuff. But really, it's the symbol of the sun. So you're looking like, say, your older Qurans before the Christian Inquisitions, and where they had a lot of graphics, and you'll find it in your old Septuagintas, old Bibles, your old pentatals, hexatals, your Buddhic script, right, etc. Now, mind you, what I'm telling you, it is known by all sheiks and people with degrees. Most of them will never admit it to you. Most of them will get mad at me for even saying this to you, because it makes them irrelevant. See, because when they have the knowledge that they hide from you, they have power over you. Because they're giving you another thing and they're controlling your thought processes and the narrative. And when you know how things work, even if you have no other power, the knowledge is power. Are we clear?
Clear.
And they also can't fleece you. They just got to out and out rob you. You ain't volunteering for the BS Dorf. Are we clear? But the point that I'm making to you is the cosmological knowledge of what money is. All right? So the sun, all of these have in their effect with the relationships of the planet in this particular solar system, and we're not talking about the systems outside this one, we're talking about this particular solar system where Gaia is, and Earth only means inhabited place. It doesn't necessarily mean the name of this planet. The name of this planet is Gaia. All right? That's also used symbolically in relationship to Earth in the life source of cycles. Are we clear?
Clear.
Are we clear? Now understand Masonry really means mother, son, study. Are we clear?
Clear.
Mother, son,
Well.
study. Ma, son, Masonry. And its relationship in nature. Are we clear?
Clear.
So the masters are told it's evil, devil, misery stuff of the devil, of Baphomet, of evil. To keep you from looking at it. That's how the world runs. Are we clear? When all the religious leaders are Masons. Are we clear? They don't mean they're bad people, just mean they ain't telling you what's really up. All right? Now, the alchemical metal for the sun is gold. Alchemical metal for Venus is copper. Alchemical metal for the moon is silver. Now, how many of you if you're in a driveway, you got a driveway or in front of your house, because in many areas, you know, they concrete, but even if you're around next to your driveway where you have vegetation, etc., and you notice in the morning you'll have like moisture on your car, right? So to the persons who don't know how the earth works, they think that the plant life is watered when it rains. Well, sometimes, yeah, often. It's not how it works. When the sun goes down, the moon, in relationship to the sun, it draws water from the earth up to water everything, to give life. Are we clear? And so you have tides of the seas and the oceans and the rivers that move with that. You also have the rhythm of the heart and your blood that works right along with that. Are we clear? So say doctors, say you're a doctor, and you have a series of operations to do, right? Contrary to people who don't really understand how things work, they'll be wondering why you're doing operations in clusters, being half sleepy, rather than just placing them out through the week. Say you got 9 operations the week, right? And so you, in 7 days, I'll do this one on Tuesday, 2 on Wednesday, 3 on Thursday, a couple on Friday, and 1 on Saturday. got this going on. You got rest and all this stuff, right? But people who really know how things work know that they go in another room, they go in their chart, which will be in their pocket, and they'll look at whether the moon is in retrograde, the position of the moon, etc. And they'll measure it against the birth chart of the patient, and they'll place them in the most ideal position with the movement of the moon, and will avoid operating when the moon is in certain phases, so that people don't bleed to death, or so they don't have to give extra blood. That's part of it. It's cosmology, or it's religion. Are we clear? And when you're looking and I do this and well, you need this pill and this disease and all that stuff, and you know, you got high blood pressure and your sandwiches, don't eat that kind of sandwich and you know, stuff like that. And what you need is this and that and the other. And you know, what they're really looking at is when your mother brought you here, what salts and phosphates that your body is structured from, which ones are missing, and they know 9 times out of 10 that has part to do with your downturn, or what you're calling sickness. And they can give it to you just by changing your diet and getting you to eat right and getting you to eat certain stuff, foods and vegetables that are around with you within 300 miles, and you wasn't sick anyway. All they're doing is maintaining you and charging you crazy finance, and when they want to, can kill you after they use up the insurance policy that their boy and the politicians got stock in, along with Reverend at the church. And your stock, human capital. And that's how it works here. But so that you don't start believing what you're teaching the dumb masses, that's why they take you into secret societies. Are we clear?
Clear.
Are we clear?
Clear.
And then what appears to be the differences on the public is so that the masses don't wake up and recognize that they're targeted by all of these parasites. That they're looking at Bishop Wiebelfetzer and Rabbi Osbazel-Dinkel and E. Muhammad. And yeah. And politician Patricias. They're all partners. And all the congressmen and congresswomen are actually members of the Roman Curia and board of directors for the Circle Church of the Chancery on Fleet Street in England. And all the judicial systems are run from England, not from this land. Orders are sent from England to Washington, D.C., and then spread out. Washington, D.C. is Washington District of the Roman Goddess Columbia. This is the seat of Rome in America. That's what those 3 stars are that you have on them tags up there. And the 2 bars is the upper world and the underworld. Are we clear?
Clear.
So the delirium has much to do with that. All right, it's knowing what that is. We're giving some background to you to know what is some of the reference point that is used by these government officials of heirship, that people who don't understand, oh wow, they got a lot of guts saying that kind of stuff. We didn't elect them. You know, it's on the surface. Who the swell is she? She's an heir. And no her. And simply exercising what should have been exercised 100 years ago. It's not that it's not known, it's just that some people, even people who know it, just didn't have the guts to stand up and say it. She and a body of youth who came into the knowledge, kind of pretty much with their eyes kind of already open, given a little bit more knowledge, and were brave enough to speak out. You could say dollar, because it still belongs to us, right? But that wouldn't necessarily be a message to the world, would it? Would it?
No, it wouldn't.
Because they commonly hear that, right?
Right.
But you say dollarium, they say, what the swell is that? So it makes you ask questions.
Yeah.
So I'm talking. But for you to have some comprehension of it, I mean, you know some because you've been studying. But, and you already know how we talk. We always try to be as fair with someone who does not know. So we can do the best we can that they can comprehend it. And so even though some things we're saying to each other, we already know it's for others, for the listeners, for them to analyze, for them to critique now and later, knowing that on the surface, yeah, well, it's cool, but it's still not comprehended because you're gonna have to kind of bathe yourself out of a lot of crap for it to dawn on you. What's up? Now, so mark these things down. It's not new to you, but mark these things down so along the lines of your analysis as we're speaking, you can look at this information now and later, and then some of your questions can be formulated that actually make sense to what's really going on. The world operates on trust law. Essentially, for your own background, Sister Q v. Trust Act 1666. 1666, 1666. The number of the man of perdition that you will see in the Septuaginta that the Romans translated under the 72 scholars into what is given to the masses for mind control called the Bible. Listen to what I just said the way I said it so that you can take that into consideration later on, because that's not the conversation, but I said it the way I said it for your benefit. Not that I'm going into it right now. I said it the way I said it for your benefit. Because the dark side will take it and twist it. Because remember, the rule that they operate on is what is called, write this down, masking and projection. You go look them up in the dictionary, trace the etymology, comprehend what it means, and you'll also understand some of the politics. While I'm not getting into that, I'm just throwing these things at you so that you can be thinking while we're talking, all right? Because logically, with some of you who have a background in the social geopolitics that have been active, you have a different view than people who are just hearing some of this information, if you get the point. So some of these things I'm saying to you is for you to contemplate later, for the things that will logically rise in your mind. What the swell are you talking about? And it can't all be answered right now, but I'm going to do the best that I can, all right? Synopsis of your modern political history operations. Remember this, that personality, masking, mask means, and personality means mask. So keep that in mind. Keep in mind, symbolically, the Boston Tea Party, where the Europeans put what they call blackface on, and then threw the tea over, and then said the indigenous people did it, the Indians. And understand, we ain't Indians, but they call us that. That's called masking and projecting. And this has much to do why the mummer's parade was always done in what you call blackface. It's called masking and projection. Yeah, give him the mic. Oh, you came ready, didn't you, brother? I see you got one of them little pocket dictionaries over there.
Boy, I got big pockets.
Yeah, little pocket dictionary like that.
I read the definition for mummer and someone who
Yeah,
does
do that.
things in
Yeah,
mass.
share with us.
Oh, all right.
Now, for the listeners, tell them the source. The source is that book, the year. That's probably on the bridge, looking at the thickness. Is that on the bridge?
Yes, it is.
All right, go ahead.
We got here. Mummer. The book is Webster's New 20th Century Dictionary of the English Language. It's unabridged and it is 1950.
All right. Go into it. All right. Mummer's part of speech.
Mummer. Noun. Getting into it. Well, the brackets, Old French, mummery, from mummer, which is M-O-M-E-R, to mum. One who masks himself and makes diversion in disguise, semicolon, a buffoon, semicolon, a mime. They have mummery, masking, semicolon, diversion in masks, buffoonery. Second definition of mummery, farcical show, hypocritical disguise, and parade.
And so that's how the Romans operate here, including the fact that you'll see the Romans have been typically, when dealing with these people, calling themselves white people and calling themselves Americans, both of which they are not. Is to get the people to agree to repeat that and then call them back. That would be transference of power. Mentally, vampirism. A sociologist, the linguist recognizes the person who can't read don't recognize it and becomes a victim by consent. Are we clear?
Yeah.
Then you understand why a lot of times when we're talking to each other, those who know will pull your coattail, and it would appear that they're making a big thing of the semantics when it is a big thing, and the average person doesn't know it's a big thing, because they don't know they're being trained to cast spells upon themselves and don't know that they're doing it. And that's part of what is known as black culture. Against themselves. They're not black people. They are black culture. You see the point? Now a scholar, a Mason knows this, but the people don't know this. So they go through life finding it difficult to solve problems, don't they? But they know basically in their heart they're intelligent. They know they're not unintelligent. They just don't know they don't have the tools. That's why in the secret society, one of the first things they do is start giving you what is known as tools and tell you, remember to use your tools. Forget to use your tools, and you just simply fall victim to the, they say, the poison that you've given everybody else. Are we clear?
Very clear.
So, point. The moon, like say if you deal with the owl, Monarch. So many of you know Chief Justice Ben Bey. How many of you know Chief Justice Ben Bey? How many of you, oh, you know Chief Justice Ben Bey. You know Chief Justice Ben Bey. You probably do. You do. You do. How many of you been to the George Washington Museum? How many of you been up there to see them black fezzes? How many of you seen the one with Bey on it? That's Chief Justice Ben Bey's fez. To the masses who are kept dumb, Chief Justice Ben Bey is Benjamin Banneker. That's for the masses. To those who know the real operations here at North America, that's Chief Justice Ben Bey, Muali, the great swordsman. That's his fez that's in that glass case there. So these people of Moorish descent walking around on their own land thinking they were born here, selling drugs to each other, totally decrepit in their own land. And Rome has made a seat for their queen here, and they're suffering in their own land at the hand of Romans, and got Roman tags on their cars and stuff, thinking they own their cars. And all of the cars are in trust under the Pope of Rome. Point. This is the point. They're under occupation, but they're heirs. They just don't know they're heirs. Are we clear? Are we clear? They're under occupation. They don't know they're under occupation. They know about colonialism that somebody told them about, but they don't know they're the target. They think some mystery engine people running around going is the target. That's a total fiction. No such people existed. Never did. You understand? The whole operation here in North America is the war against the Muslims and Muslims, i.e. the Moors, the true people of the land, the true Al-Moroccans, who have been conquered under the Spanish Inquisition. They changed names of peoples and lands and reconstructed history, and that's what you're living. Reconstructed history, reconstructed religion, you got reconstructed monetary system, and you're living Reconstruction, better known as Black history. Good, you at the mic.
Brother, I work with a lot of people from the other side of the ocean, and they always say they have Christian names, and most of them will name days of the week and stuff like that, Nigeria, Togo.
The reason, now the reason they say that is because of the Inquisition. See, because the bodies of the people are claimed by the popes of Rome under the Spanish Inquisition against the Moors. That's why they ask you what's the Christian name. Because the name belongs to the Christians. It belongs to Constantine, Roman ruler. Do you understand? In other words, you know how they say Masonry is an open secret? When you start having a background and you just start talking, you're actually uncovering what's right in front of your face. And the Wizard of Oz was just standing behind the curtain right in front of you anyway.
Can I say something else?
Go ahead.
I noticed that South Africa.
Stay clear in your mic.
I noticed in South Africa, Nigeria, all of these places, Australia, I noticed that all of these lands where the original people are, the original people have nothing. So I was like, well, over here.
That's the Spanish Inquisition. Same thing, they got nothing here. Everything they have is rented.
We didn't come from, through you, I know that we didn't come from.
You came from the earth.
Exactly.
You're already here.
Exactly.
Now, what is the great Masonic secret? Particularly what that French Muslim told Malcolm when Malcolm went over there with that black stuff talking about Islam. What that Muslim say to him? He said, brother, don't come over with that black and white language. To you, Maghreb is evening salat. To the rest of the world, Maghreb is Morocco, the most extreme west. You left home, brother. Don't come over with that black and white stuff. Rude awakening. And of course, because he didn't sell out, it was only a matter of time before the conversos over here, with the help of Romans, murdered him, because they knew he was going to eventually tell, although he had to get his head together. Because he had to relearn a lot of things. But that's the root change in the one they call Malcolm, that except for people in the tight circle, most of them don't know about. They looking at him making the Hajj and, being a good brother and all that stuff. That's why he's Eel Malik. He found out. And it was a European that kind of dropped the Masonic keys on them. That's why a lot of people, crazy Muslims, don't like him. That's the real reason. It has nothing to do with the secularism type thing. It's have to do that he wouldn't sell out. Do you understand? And the underlying information, which is in line with what we're talking about, is dangerous to people who created organizations and been taking our people back into blackness, knowing that it's a code system for the Pope of Rome to steal the estates of these people. Because they'd be thinking that somebody look like you and me love you and they in the Lord and all this type of stuff and they marching you out of hell type thing. You understand? Truth is uncomfortable, but it is what it is. Are we clear?
Yeah.
Delirium is a chosen word to distinguish from dollar, Yakenthaler, which means gold coins. From the moon. Now look at this, you all. Thank you, good brother. From the moon. Dealing with, oh, I've got 2 ways. The ecosystem for life. Eco, economy, right? So if you're dealing with an almanac, right? Even if you, like say we're going fishing, you say, well, Taj, listen, man, if you down here sometime, man, you know, let's get together, let's go fishing. You won't, if you don't already know, just from your experience, you would go to an almanac and go to different fishing spots because different fish will come because they trade, because everything operates in cycles and with intelligence. So you have certain fish will feed in certain areas at different times of the day according to the tides, or even at night, right? And say you want to get minnows to use for bait for fish, you wouldn't necessarily, you could get them, but you wouldn't necessarily, except for a certain type, go at night. You go there in the evening in the shadows and, you know, in daytime, and go get some minnows and save them for bait to go fishing, right? And then later in the day, they're not going to be there because the other fish are out. You see? So you're looking at the movement of the moon, aren't you?
Yeah.
If you're looking at Islam from the cosmological anthropomorphic perspective, right? Same thing with Easter, you know, in the Constantine order. You would look for the movement of the moon, right? So if you're looking for Ramadan, you would look for the movement of the moon. Looking for Easter, movement of the moon. Even when the holidays are over, you're dealing with the movement of the moon, are we clear? It's cosmology, but usually never explained to the believers, are we clear? And so they think it's a belief system when actually it's an operative study of the universe, the transit of the sun, the equinoxes of the sun, and the relationship of the planetary life forms with the sun, are we clear? All right? So
Say that again, carry life form?
yeah, planetary life forms.
Okay.
See, because the sun is what is called, this is why they say the Son of God is life, is everlasting, like this place, everlasting life.
I didn't hear you. Okay.
Because that's where these terms, what they really mean, but they're never really explained. They're left in an anthropomorphic form, so the people keep looking at it as powers in people, some man or men that walk around. Are we clear? When you're dealing with forces and powers. Are we clear?
Clear.
So with the moon, you're dealing with the ecosystem. It is dominant in the ecosystem of the earth. And so you have your seasons, right? You have your tides. So you have your growth seasons. So in your almanac, you will have charts for people who don't know, and it will tell you the best time to plant stem plants, you know, food plants, stem, seed, fruit, and leaf. And so you people who know this by culture just do it automatically because it's in the culture. Because that's the religion, it's agriculture, all right? So to feed self, to feed life, according to nature, not according to your beliefs, right? And so almost all times when you're dealing with the plantings, you're dealing with 3 to 7 day cycles that are very important in all seasonal planting. Still based in mathematics, you see, of the movement and transits of the sun and the moon. So that has much to do with ecology, right? And economy. See, if you have bad crop, doesn't matter whatever else is happening in society, you got famine. And you got famine, anybody worrying about whether they got a Cadillac or a Volkswagen. Both of them gonna be parked. Can't get the gas and stuff. You know, but you know what I'm going for. But cause you're hungry too. Anything about going to the restaurant closed. Duh. And if they do give you potato, you probably can't afford it. Inflation. But the deal of this, so I'm making the relationship. So the alchemical metal for the moon is silver. Moon ecology, right? And so you got moon, right? Ecology, economics, right? And so you have moon with one N, with one O, money, E, ecology, and the moon. That's money. Now the Europeans, to hide it, will say Muneta, the Roman goddess. They would say it that way to hide it. But it's really cosmology, are we clear?
Yeah.
Therefore, in harmony with nature, because remember, real culture on the earth is based on nature. And therefore, the sun, this is why gold, or the gold coin, by weights and measures, is the dollar, which means Yakum dollar, which means gold coin. So that's the dollar. And by balanced value, you need more grams of weight to balance the value, and so you'd have four, and notice how this is. Right? And it would be what? You see? So the $1 would be a whole. You see? Now, where's the whole come from? Whole dollar. In Sanskrit, the sun would be called what? Ali. That's where you get whole, and this is also where you get the word holy. So when you get what they call the holy books, you're getting cosmology books. So when they say Holy Bible, that means sun book. They say Holy Quran, that means sun reader. You see, so the people who know look at these things different than the people they're teaching the dogma systems to. Are we clear? So I'm just throwing some of these things out to you because you can reason with it, and you can also look back over your life and look back over things that are said, things that you see symbolically, and you can comprehend them, and you can see how simple it is, but also how complex it has been made to the masses when it really isn't complex. They've just been deceived. And certain fundamentals have been held back from them. So if you give somebody a foundation, they can begin to walk through this thing. And they also can't be played mentally. You understand? All clear?
Clear.
So that's the money. Now let's go to the history, because history and it all goes together. Now, law is a subdivisional category of what is known as jurisprudence. So write down jurisprudence. And jurisprudence is the science that treats of positive law. All right? Law, jurisprudence doesn't so much come under law as law comes under jurisprudence. Are we clear?
Yes.
And jurisprudence is a science that treats of positive law. But logically, there's also a negative. It's known as color of law. Color of law, by rule, is not law, but it is classified so that you can have an understanding of opposing forces. Are we clear?
Clear.
So when you hear color of law, understand that means that is no law. It is presented as law. Are we clear? So when you have a dollar bill, it is not money. It is presented as money. You wouldn't make statements like, that's not real money. Though technically you're kind of right, the statement is incorrect. In a refined argument battle, you lose. We want to get you to being specific, because that's where the power is. The power is in knowledge. All right? So don't say that the dollar bill is not real money. Say the dollar bill is private commercial paper. That's what it is. And it comes under the classification of fiat. It itself is sometimes called fiat, but that's kind of improper. You understand what I'm saying to you? Yeah. And what we need to do is get more and more away from loose conversation and loose statements that are assumed to be correct when they're still kind of diversionary and not necessarily accidental. Do you understand? It's just that certain phrases are thrown out there as people begin to wake up. It's sort of like throwing the dog a bone who's waking up and recognize he's been played. So they gave him a bone, but it's really a pill. But he's more awake than he was before, but he still ain't told the truth. All right, so let's look at this. Dollar gold coin or 4 quarter moons, which would be called 25 cents. See, that's where you get the quarter from that you see. The silver, that's why the quarters were silver. You see? And by weight and scale and measure, that's why you have the silver dollar. But the dollar would be smaller by value, by physicality, but it would be of equal value, but it would be so small and easy to lose. Are we clear? Which is why they would give you checks for them. That's why they created the check system. And we were talking about this earlier, and it's important for you all to get this. Take a few pieces of paper, maybe like this, and so that you can demonstrate this to yourself and demonstrate this to your children. Very important, because children are less contaminated. And it's important for them because technically the way the system is set up, they're already robbed. What they're calling quantitative easing is a cover word for making loans against the estate of unborn children who will in the future be born poor unless you do certain things to rescue them. Now, which is another reason we're giving you information. Since most of you say you love your children. That may not be necessarily true, but assuming that you really mean it, we're giving you some tools. All right? Can you come up here for a minute, Brother Mason? Now keep in mind the political scenarios that have been going on. The Constantinians, under the guise of the name Christianity, have been on a tear to conquer the world. That's the real politics. The operational move of the Vandals is called the Spanish Inquisition. They came here to steal our gold and silver. That was the major issue. They got comfortable and then made themselves at home after they came and saw the civilizations that were here. That they destroyed, and their mission was to cover it up and to rewrite the history. And also to change the calendars. Are we clear? So let's come up a little bit. The reality of the weight of coinage, weight of gold, etc. And because the Vandals were going around the earth, going to and fro the earth, devouring nations, and it's become a norm, they started agreeing with a system set up by the popes of Rome called bringing it to the bench of the Pope, and they were protected while wars were going on. This has much to do with their unum sanctum church bulls, so write that down, unum sanctum. And supported by the doctrine of discovery. There's other bulls, but those two bulls are important for you to understand the politics, particularly what goes on in North America. So, look at this, you all. This is very important for you to get this. Please do not miss what I'm getting ready to tell you. Because even after you tell people this, they still miss it. This is what makes it difficult. Here. I bring my gold and my silver to the bank. Much of it is done coercion, but it's done in a manner of treaty that we have some kind of sense of trust. He gives me a check for it. And the check, that's fine, and the check would be given a number as well as other information that indicates the existence of this piece of silver, which would also have some identification and sometimes numbers that would match this check. Hear what I'm saying? And the check is known as a gold certificate or a silver certificate. Now, it is a check. Are we clear?
Yeah.
Repeat.
It is a check.
The gold certificate, silver certificate are checks. Are we clear?
Yeah.
He gives me a check. I can make liens against this check in an organized society when I travel. Held to honor. Are we clear?
Clear.
When I come back with the check is already tied to this gold, and I retrieve my gold with this check, not upon permission, but upon demand. Are we clear? Inquisition operations in the background taking place in dishonor. He's stealing my gold, and then they start saying that this check is the money, and start training you to think that this check is the money, right? This has a direct tie, right? Then I trade the check for the money, get it back, then he's going to issue this check again. He makes another check with the same serial number on it and starts loaning this to someone else. Hold on. Then he removes these silver certificates, and then he makes a debt note. And to indicate it's a debt note, now it's his own private commercial paper in organized order that ties to the check, that ties to the money. Now you're 3 times removed. All right? Then he removes it again. And he makes a dollar bill, Federal Reserve note, which is a debt note on the debt, on the debt, on the money, on the check to claim the money. After a while, the people forget about the check, because a couple generations, they never see this anymore, so they don't even They're not even familiar with it, right? Right, at all, right? Then they take this and they create another system, and then they create another instrument called a check, to make claim on the debt note that now they're calling the money. Your 4 levels removed. Then they create a credit system, digital, abstract, to make a lien against the check, against the debt note, against the other note, against the check, against the money, and you're about 5 times removed, and that's why it never dawns on you that you're 4 places removed from the money. And you train the society that way. So they get in the habit of training, of calling credit money, which it is not, calling currency money, which is the movement of these instruments, and the acceptance of them, not the reality of them. They're all of them are debt. None of it is wealth. It's all debt, right? Their operations, then they create what you call a 2-book system, 2-book ledger. Then they also created what is called FACT, write this down, a joint stock trust, and disallow anyone else to do it. Are we clear? These are facts. And with that joint stock trust, then with what you hear some people talk about, the straw man system. The straw man system is where the European Germanic tribes, for the most part in the Western Hemisphere, imposed upon the Moors, who they call Negro, black, colored, Indian, Spanish, etc. All of these terms are not who the people are. To convert their corporation operations under the Roman Curia that manages all this, which is called the United States Trading Company, registered in Austria. And then they have another tributary in France. Oh, that's the Franciscan Brotherhood. That's the French mask. You gotta understand what's happening. Franciscan Brotherhood. The Franks. French Frank too. All right. Now, so now you have generations of people who are groomed with a 4-layer check system, all of which they have been trained to think is money, and the first 2 levels of the check system are now removed from circulation, whereas these are collected as items of collection, and they'll give more of these for these as collection, but they won't, as you say, spend them. And they can't redeem them. Not that they shouldn't be redeemed, but they won't allow you to redeem them. So you have a lot of people at their homes, myself and you and others, that have what is known as silver certificates. Some have gold certificates that are valuable, but you can't use them. Why? Because they will not allow you to redeem the money, because the Christians came here to steal your gold. But the game is to make you stop thinking that they're colonists. So they'll say they're white people with light skin. They're white Americans, and you adopted that and start saying it, so now they are sovereign. Because you, who are really the heirs, are starting to call them Americans, of which they're not. Not knowing that that little subtlety that you think is unimportant is a transfer of birthright. Do you understand? Because you can't read and you don't understand the politics, right? Now understand, this movement of these instruments is simply a war operations. They don't even know it's a war operation of theft in their face, right? So now they create dead pledges and they convert all your noble allodial titles and aboriginal titles into mortgages and deeds. Now more specifically, that was done in 1913. Well, we're talking the operations of what's going on right now. Behind this, remember we're talking about delirium, that issue that a lot of people are looking at right now. So now you have people here who know they're the heirs, and you have many who don't know they're heirs. However, those who know can't keep waiting on those who do not know, who don't know they're getting ready to get liquidated. Meaning you can't wait forever for sleepers to wake up when you're under attack and the world is changing. Certain things are not under your direct power. You're going to act or just simply be fodder, right? Now, so the average person who considers themselves intelligent, working hard, taxpayer type mentality, they don't even know the tax is really a tithe. And that the persons who they're paying tax to is not their government. They're colonial occupiers under the circle church and the chancellery. So their communities never get wealthy. They're always poor, and they think their communities are poor because they have dark skin. Because that's what they're told. And then they pump that to their children. So their arguments and concepts are totally incorrect even when they're trying to fix this thing. Then they pay off people like you in your community who are usually religious leader guys to march you around the place and make oratorial statements about racism and Allah and Jesus and racism and make this better and jobs, Job, job, Joe, job, Joe, long O, short O. It's all related. And so they're telling you, well, what we need is more jobs to get more money. Now we're 4 times removed already. And these people think they're getting paid. They're not. These are bookkeeping instruments to see the energy output of the biological machines. Biological machines. Transceivers. Humans are transceivers. They're biological machines. We're talking facts now. Transceivers. They receive and they emit energy. They're not to know that. Are we clear? They are measured even mathematically from what you call BTU output, energy output. Right? This is back to the issue of labor creates capital. Capital does not create labor. Capital comes from Capitoline wolf, which is the symbol of Rome, where you'll see in the museum in London, where you see that wolf and you have 2 little male child underneath the wolf, underneath the breast tits is Romulus and Remus. Romulus murders Remus, and Romulus is symbolic of what now becomes Rome, the Roman Empire, i.e. the Germanic tribes that you've been calling white people. Are we clear? These missionary workers conquered the world. Are we clear? So to conquer nature, you must take what you can't control directly. You must take the energy that is also life form to them, because also they're not to know that, like say you get burned here, right? Take the silver coin out here and put that there, and that's better than all the other medicines that you can have. That silver coin and no bacteria can live on it. As a matter of fact, they grind this up and they make what they call silver dye for burn victims. And also the gold is also like, you're sick, they'll give you gold powder and have you eat it in the ancient world or in African culture to help heal you. And also when you got this energy near you, and this even draws out toxins. We're talking reality. All right, so also to create dis-ease is to get this away from you too. See, so there's multiple reasons why the Christians came to steal your gold: to create sickness, to create darkness, also to steal your wealth, and to get you out of harmony with nature. And at the same time fool you that you don't know you're being disconnected. Then control the narrative. Are we clear? So the masses, for the most part, have never been paid, and they think they're paid. Number 2, They think they're paying debts, and you cannot pay a debt with the Roman system of operations. It is set off and discharged according to all of their records, which means the debt does not disappear. It's set off to be claimed on you later. So therefore, they must control your estate. That's what the Sister QV Trust Act is. And this is what the Sister QV Trust creations that they put on every being here under marriage certificates and birth certificates. That's what they are. So the marriage certificates is where the Romans claim the wombs of the women and the fallopian tubes, and they claim the eggs in the tube, which are nations. Are we clear? And then for the ones that hatch, they have the birth certificates on the C's. That's why it's called birth, B-E-R-T-H, but they'll write I-E, interchangeable, and to the people has different meanings, but they're really talking shipping. And barratry, all right? And this is, so now this is back. So we're talking delirium.
Okay.
So now the reality is, for you all who are here and elsewhere, and with the operations that are going on now in the world, the nations of the earth, to save themselves. Not that they didn't understand it before, it's not something that they concluded. It's almost like a situation that they were pushed into, to where they have no choice, where, you know how like the nations of the earth have been paying tithe to Rome under force of arms and under war powers, because the Jesuits have the world's largest army and it's infiltrated all the nation states, and most of their leaders are puppets of Rome. And so the people by default have been submitting and have learned to find a tolerable position in the structure, and have come to the reality and conclusion that they are going to eliminate them, and that if they're going to save themselves in spite of the threats that go on, that they're going to have to unite and stop backing the check notes that have been issued in the name of money, while the masses don't know they never had money, and they're arguing monetary arguments, which makes them totally incompetent. And any one of the stages they're calling money, and none of the stages of the removal are money. They collectively are classified as fiat. Though individually they're not fiat. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? They're classified as fiat, which is mean a claim of de facto authority giving value to something that has no value. But because we say it do, it does. So they come in your house, we're gonna make some regulations. See that peach tree you got in your yard in front? You can't have peach trees no more because Romans said that you can't. So we're going to charge you for the work to tear that tree down. And if you want to tear it down, we'll sell you a permit to do it. You better not cut it down without our permit. Either way, you're gonna pay us. So you pay us, we cut the tree down, we take it and ship it away to the factory, grind it up, we make paper on it and print it with the berries that we stole from yours, come back, and we tell you it's money, then we buy your land in your house with your peach tree that we just charged you to cut down, and you're already convinced that you got money. Remember, this is the money, but you forgot. But you've been educated by Rome, so you think that education is for humans, education is for animal training. After all, you got degrees. So here we are. Here we are. Come here for a minute. He wake up for some reason. Now remember, some of them are told anyway because they need to control these people. So they'll usually pick somebody that has what they call religious training, because that's part of the mind control. So he'll usually be a reverend. Well, we're going to get you, 32-degree Mason, to start marching these people around under civil rights, 14th Amendment, and make them think that they U.S. citizens, which means stock, right? And they need to be citizens so they can vote and have their own peanut butter sandwiches and stuff, right? Right? And so they give, like in recent years, the different method of the same thing. In most recently, particularly since Johnson, Lyndon Baines Johnson, they created a 501c3 agreement where he'll agree to not cross the line of the religious instructions and really get into civics. Really, you don't go there, right? So in secret, he get his fez dressed in jewels, his masonry. You really know what's real, because you're really ruling in Morocco, but you'll call America, which is a continent, a country, because they don't know better. They're little rats. They're goyim. They're not human, right? And because he says Jesus every 2 minutes, you know, you start getting teary-eyed and everything. And then you give him more fiat, which now he trades back to the bank because it's no good on its own. It has to go through the bank to give their ledger value, right? Then he's given resources for this, which is really a lien against the estate. You're not buying anything, but the people's training is that they're buying things. Do you get the point? You have what is called a voucher lien against existing estate that the people don't know belongs to them. They're told that they were brought from someplace else on a good ship, Jesus, 1555. They're trained, and he helps get that training done. Do you understand what I'm saying? But because he says Jesus, oh, he's a man of God. You don't know it means the Lords of London. You think it means God in it, because they told you this. This has nothing to do with you or the culture, but it becomes a culture because you've adopted generations and you think it's your culture. Right, so now, the slave, which is an adopted connotative linguistic format, which is really a nationality of Europeans, but that's for how do I keep you working and not running away? So I'll get from the estate, Mr. Smith will send eggs over here. We're dealing mostly cattle. So I'll get you not run away. I make you think you're paid. Now you go to Mr. Smith and pick up the eggs and he'll send some things over here and blah, blah, blah. And then I'll give you a passport, which now becomes a license. This is so that you will not captured while you're moving, because any one of the Romans can grab you as their servant. So you got to prove that you belong to, so they say, what's your Christian name? Right, so you got Mr. Smith, you got Mr. Johnson's name, and you're going to get some stuff. So now they'll let you have, like the pigs. You'll have the guts. You can't eat none of the good meat. This is why our people are used to chitlins and stuff like that. You know, what used to be thrown away, just enough to keep you healthy, right? Now you think you working now. You got a job. You think you're getting paid. No, you're getting a lien against the resources that already belong to you, your forefathers, by inheritance. But you don't know that. So you carry to them, so you got to worry about you running because you think you got a job. Then he gives you a voucher or coupon, which is really a transfer also on the books that's called bill. It's already paid because it's all from the state. But to you, you're buying and selling it. That's not what's taking place, and never was. These people have been trained in this for so many generations, it's hard to get them to understand what money is not. And that credit is not money, and currency is not money, and they've never been paid, and they're not paying bills. And that the bills that are sent to them in mail are really coupons for ledgers. And so in order to affirm that it's really an estate trust, they will always write the name, which means corporation, in all capital letters, which is the straw, and not you. You actually have no right to it, but you have the appearance because you trust it, because it sounds, when read, like you, and you start saying, this is me. That's what it's for. It's for convincing you, not convincing the sender. All right. Masonry is to keep the senders or the feeders from believing the system that is fed to the stock. Are we clear?
So it's allowing them to pull from the trust.
Yes.
Such give you trust.
And that's why you're the resource.
Right.
To destabilize you and to keep you destabilized, they make sure that in the dogma systems that are given to you as religion are really the secret Christian black codes, which is designed to break your families up. So most marriages will not last over 3 years, and usually when they do, it's only because one of you can't afford economically to leave. But most times if she could, she'd get the hell out there as fast as she can, not, or vice versa. And then really you end up being enemies and you're together in misery. But you try to work it out. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? I'm gonna get to you, but I want to finish this part because it's very important. So this is where you get, when you're dealing with the real rules of trade that's happening on the planet, the rest of the world knows that the debt belongs to the Jesuit order, United States Service Corporation Company. That's what United States Code of Law is 12, write this down, 12, United States Code of Law 12, subsection 95A, 95B. That's where we put in the article I adjusted years ago, called rescission or reversioner. That's what that's really about. Where you say publicly you don't stand as surety for the United States, that's what that's really about, because we've done those lessons before. I'm going back, and this is what I'm saying to you, I'm going in different subject matter, but if you all haven't been coming in regularly, you may not relate, but it's important to get the concept together to talk in short about delirium. Right? Knowing that the world's fooled, and in knowing that most people are, when they do find a little bit of this out, they'll immediately talk about Woodrow Wilson and Jekyll Island and limit their conversation to that and think they're really getting deep. And they just really took the first surface off the onion. You get the whole point? The real deal is about a state. So they're still talking money. Now, systematically, in order to rape the people, they, through their secret societies, always keep what you call corporate secession operatives. So write that down, corporate secession. And so you're always pulled in because you already know you physically in this particular form won't outlive the system. So corporate secession is where you have heritability or inheritances by corporate operations. So therefore the corporation is given the designation person, particularly after they closed the Freedmen's Bureau. So they could transfer the estate and look legal, not lawful, legal process. Are we clear? Now you can see so far that after a couple of generations why it's difficult to try to explain to people what money is. Even when they know that this is the money and that the Federal Reserve note isn't the money, they'll be saying statements like, the Federal Reserve note ain't the real money. Wrong statement. It is not money. It is not the real money. It's fiat. It's not fiat. It's categorized under fiat. It's private commercial paper for bank bookkeeping ledger purposes only. For the creators and controllers of it, it is given to you as money to fool you, to make you think you're secure. And they can claim it at any time. You make an account with them in the bank, you think it's your bank account? No, that bank account is a trust and they can take it anytime at will. And if Mr. Smith wants to argue with you and he don't like you, or if he wants your land, or he wants to break up your marriage, and he has nothing to do with you whatsoever outside of the transaction that we have, he can just simply put a lien on you called a foreign bill of exchange, commonly called by the dumb people a traffic ticket, and put a lien against the estate and arrest you and mess your family up, and then take your car that you think is yours. And then that makes you lose your job and then you can't make no more transfers and only need a few months, and then they take you out of the house with this sharecropping agreement. And then you borrow from your family to so-called pay, and you think you paid, and they still take the shit, because you really haven't paid anything you think you have. They can accept it if they want to, and they don't have to at all. If you don't believe that, you can get a stack of these and decide that you have some other plans and you're gonna pay the house off. Like there, you go to any bank and with a stack of these things and say, I'm paying off the mortgage, and see if they take it. They will not take it, and they will not let you do it, because that is worthless. The issue is to keep you in debt, because it's a debt instrument. And the people who don't understand it say, I went in there to pay my mortgage off. The statement itself is incorrect, but it is their trained belief. The banker knows it's only set off. It is only discharged. He needs to continue to be the trustee on your behalf, which is his real position as a FOFR with you. You're thinking you owe the bank something and that's what your business is. No, you're dealing with a trustee and heirship relationship with an incompetent heir and a belligerent trustee arbitrarily and de facto. You got enough? So, all right, thank you. Oh, so now we're talking delirium. Now, in trust law, now to forget you, so I want to make sure everybody's clear on this, particular listeners. In trust law, when an heir to an estate comes to a level of maturity or competence, and maturity doesn't always mean age. It means consciousness and capacity and competence. You get this point? And minor and minority does not mean numbers, it means social condition. And so you have people who think that minor means African numbers of people in a small group because they're trained to that. Those who know law means it's social status first. Are we clear? So they agree to be minorities because somebody marching around named Reverend Marcher, civil rights guy, told them that. They don't know he's a Mason and in secret got a Moorish fez and he's really working for Rome, right? I'm good?
10 minutes.
That's all? Or anyway, wow, time flies, don't it?
No, you don't come back.
Yeah. And this is really what's going on. Now, as far as like Taj Tarik Bey and the judiciary of the Moorish government, it is simply heirs taking rightful control of their estate. Operative paper to it. You know, like a lot of people keep trying to capture the Sister Q Trust of the Global Estate Trust controlled by the Popes of Rome and the Jesuits, and they either use the birth certificate, marriage certificate, etc., trying to take control of the straw man, financial statements, all kinds of systems, which they'll never get, if you get the whole point. But because people are waking up to the system, people are making some of these discussions. So the real deal is you have to kill it by virtue of simply being yourself. Because at that time, by international law, even though they don't deliver it to you, they can't use it, it dies. So whatever nation states got them bonds in their treasury, which is the fact around the world, because most of the nations have what is known averaging 55% minimal. Most of the reserve currencies in most of the treasuries of most of the nations around the world are in reserve of United States treasury bonds, represented by the dollar bill. Dollar bill means money, debt. Bill means debt. The note means debt. But the people can't read, so they think dollar bill means a valuable instrument. It's only valuable for bookkeeping. So once you understand that, you understand what the set-off is and the discharge is that some people find out. And then they try it, and then the Europeans come after them because they never want you to become controller of your estate. Now, when They issued dollarium immediately. It's not dollar, but you see the relationship. So now it creates already in the minds of the people and the nations of the world, wait, where's this dollarium thing coming from? This is not what's in circulation right now, but dollar, now they're looking. Well, who's this? Oh, shit. The heirs are waking up and they're speaking publicly. Publicly. You understand? So they're holding all the instruments and they have no intention to deliver them, but they're no good to them either. It's sort of like all these instrumentalities and bonds that you created and you sold, you're not going to deliver to them, so they can't be holder in due course, but they're no good to you either. So now they're forced to do what? Build a couple more machines and print, which they was already doing 24/8 instead of 24/7. We're talking about what's happening in the real world, not what people think they understand. Now the heirs say $666 trillion dollarium. That appears arbitrary. No, it's the opposing chess move to the man of perdition. And the debt that he claims that's on us, because we're the nationals, and he's been calling it national debt. We ain't U.S. citizens, and they ain't a nation. There's no such thing as national debt. I don't accept it. However, against my estate that you're already controlling, being the heir, I can claim anything I want to, because all of it's mine. We know that you ain't gonna physically give it up. You don't even have it to give up. But what you do have, we got this covered, so we're making claim on it, and we can write notes against it. Whether you accept them or not, it's not the issue. Our notes are legitimate, and yours aren't. And the world knows it, even if you don't recognize it. So what we've just done is we've thrown not a wrench in the system, we threw a Mack truck in the system. So they're quite angry. However, it doesn't make any difference. The world can't ignore it, because they're operating on trust law too, and those instruments are in their banking systems, which are collapsing. So now the Jesuit order is forced to what they admit to, 85 billion Federal Reserve notes a day for the last 3 months, and publicly they say they stopped the 10th, this past 10th of October, which we already know didn't happen, to what do they satisfy what is called repos. And repos, which is one bank is loaning another bank billions of notes overnight to be paid back the next morning by them selling people's estates. This is why they're foreclosing all over the place, because they're leaning on people's estates to back more debts, but now they can't get nobody to buy them. So now GM and others are having to take thousands of cars and park them in the desert near those planes because they can't sell them. But they don't want to tell the world they're going to stop making cars. But for what people have left, they are selling SUVs, so they're selling them. But then the price of gas is going up, and pretty soon they're going to have to park them. And the rest of the world is introducing electrical engineering that already exists for hundreds of years, that's been hidden from the public, which means these gas-powered automobiles are obsolete already anyway. So they're going to try to dump them within the next 2 years. And while they're resisting, the rest of the world is moving beyond them because they're not being bound by these Federal Reserve notes. And the people here are asleep to it. Now, do you understand the $666 trillion dollarium issue claim against our estate by the heirs themselves who have right to it, even though it confuses some people and even some people are upset? Who has the right to the inheritance but the heir? That's what that's about, and you figure out the rest for yourself. Anyway, I want to thank you all for coming out. I want to thank Brother Ali for being courageous enough to maintain the integrity of bringing people here who are trying to share information to wake the people up, because the real deal is no man will save you, you will save yourself. If you find your God, you'll find him within. If you find your demon, you'll find him within. If you'll find your salvation, you'll find it within. Save yourself. So you're given certain information to save yourself. It's based on divine law. Use it if you will. Failure to use it, the consequence is yours. You will guide your own destiny. Thank you very much.
So we pick up on part 2. We're gonna pick up on part 2. So we're gonna do how it goes down, the second, and the fourth Tuesday. That's what we do.
Okay.
Alright, so he'll be back on the end of the fourth Tuesday.
Okay.
Alright.